Just when you thought it was safe.
Yo, hey, you already know what time it is. We gonna start set. You already know we gonna check the record. Before the record, it's my man
Billy Dog.
Hey, I'm your boy KD3, and we got a special guest. You know what I'm saying? We like to make sure that we tap in with our community. You know what I mean, and talk to people that you know what I'm saying that be doing it out here. You know what I'm saying? So we decided to talk to my man Cameron Young. You know what I'm saying?
Hold on, man, because we gotta remember and let people know we are on location.
Oh yeah. If you can't realize,
you don't recognize this, we moving out here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we gonna be in a couple different spots and places. You never know where we might pop up at. You know what I'm saying?
We're gonna pop up at the grocery store. We're gonna be in Hy-Vee in the back.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope not. But
I'll tell you no. I'll cancel that one.
But yeah, with that being said, man, we got our man Cameron Young in here. You know what I'm saying? How you doing, bro?
Welcome. Yeah, appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, and if you don't know who Cameron Young is,
you better know.
He's a young man that's out here repping for the dispensaries and the cannabis industry out here in South Dakota. You know what I'm saying?
Say that out loud again, please, for the people.
You know what I'm saying? And he runs is East River Dispensary.
East River Farms Dispensary.
East River Farms Dispensary. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest though, it hasn't been an easy road though, because I see that our former governor, you know what I'm saying, has stifled our marijuana legislation since it came out, since we voted in 2020, right? I think it was the best turnout we've ever had
in the history of voting.
It was like 70% of people came and said, you know what? We would like you to free the weed around here. You know what I'm saying? Medical and recreational. Then they came back and said, nah, not recreational. We'll give you medical, right? And then, you know what I'm saying, fast forward to 2025, I feel like they're trying to make it or repeal it or make it harder for the medical now as well, too. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to kind of pick your brain, man. So first of all, tell us how you got into the cannabis industry.
Well, I want to say thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I guess I got in the cannabis industry, you know, just by paying attention, you know, just always been around it.
Mm-hmm.
Friends always smoked it. I smoked it here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew it was kind of a business opportunity. And in 2020, we had everybody jumping ship doing something different.
Yeah.
You know, podcasts, like you guys are doing now. And it sounds like you guys started right around 2020 or so.
Yeah.
I saw that we had passed both. We were the first state to pass both.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to kind of, like I said, be a part of it. It was in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, just paid attention to what was going on when it comes to city council meetings at the local level, to even what you guys are talking about kind of at the state government level, you know, with Kristi Noem kind of what she has kind of laid her hand into, if you will.
Correct. I know, like, you know what I'm saying? You gave us like a high level overview of how you got into it, but like, I know, like, just from like, obviously knowing you and paying attention, you know what I'm saying? The process to get into, win the lottery to say, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That was like,
they literally was calling
it. It was crazy.
They were calling it like, you had to get luck. Like, it was literally like a lottery.
Right.
Yeah.
No, for
So
sure.
take us through that process of how, man, you grinding to get to this point, and then when you find out, it's a go.
Right. So no, again, I think all this really kind of starts at the local level. If you kind of pay attention to any of the state maps, you have different counties. Within different counties, you have different rules. And by me knowing that, I wanted to kind of just stay in touch with what's going on in the biggest county that we have. I guess the two biggest counties, where our MSA is 4 total, but I wanted to see what was up with Minnehaha County and Lincoln County. Yeah. And so I made sure, you know, that I showed up in person for the city council meetings. Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to learn and kind of just gauge on where they were at, just even with the medical thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when they came out and said that they were going to have 5, I knew, you know, just kind of having a real estate background, that, hey, I needed a piece of property somewhere in South Dakota, just to be able to even have a chance.
100%.
You know,
that's a gem right there on its own.
Right. No, it is. And so, was able to kind of find a lease for super cheap. You know, I hadn't had all the things kind of put together, because they kind of spring these things onto you at the last minute.
100%.
And they opened the lottery and said, I think it was maybe a period of 2 weeks, that we had at the local level, in Minnehaha County / Lincoln County, that hey, if you wanted to get an application and you had about, 14 to 21 days, which is not a lot of time at all.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. Tell me a little bit about the application process. Was it just like literally filling out an application? You had to pay a small royalty or fee or something like that?
Right.
And kind of let me know the intricacies of that.
Well, when it comes to just the overall application, they kind of set the rules.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of set like what they want, and for here, they wanted you to have, so many different setbacks when it comes to your property. They wouldn't allow you to be next to daycares and
A lot of restriction.
a lot of restriction when it comes to just kids and just they something new and they wanted to be safe. So they kind of set the setbacks, but it's in a sense filling out a 4 or 5 page paper that they want. But with that, you have to attach so much other things to it. Just you can prove to them that you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. So you have to come like a business plan. You have to have like probably years of taxes and all that stuff.
Exactly. Okay. Not so much the taxes, but they wanted to know you had a place, and they wanted to know that your landlord or you as the owner of the property say, hey man, I own this, or I'm gonna allow this here. And that's where it kind of went. We got the place, move forward with the application. Yeah, there was like kind of some hefty fees. I think our application total was right around probably $75,000, which is,
Woo!
yeah, exactly. So it's like, hey, but you got to pay to play.
Absolutely.
And so it was like, damn, go ahead.
So I was gonna say, when you paid your application fee, there was still no guarantee at that point. You literally invested into a future that may not come to fruition the way you planned.
I will give Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a little bit of credit on this. They made it refundable.
Okay, all right.
And most places don't make things refundable. So when you go into your investors and you go into your circle to try to pull something off like this,
yeah,
you get a different outcome than say, hey man, it's not refundable. We just gambling for nothing. And so they made it refundable.
That's
and
crazy.
Even with that I had to say, I guess my investors had the same response. It's kind of sigh of relief. That's a big number, but if we can get it back. If we don't win, we can get it back.
For sure.
But they end up having a lottery. The ball dropped. I think it was like 3rd or 4th. And then from there, it's just really kind of game on.
Yeah.
Just
so let me just ask. So like, you win the lottery. I think there's a video out there of you winning.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? So obviously, tell me just the thought process of going through. Like they say your name and what goes through your head at that point.
They say my name, and it just like, damn. I just kind of thought like, yeah, we got a chance. We got a chance to pull this like little dream off. Like right in our backyard, and it's not going to be some like random multi-million-dollar or multi-state operator investor coming in. We get the chance to do this, and that's what was kind of going through my mind. And if you saw the video, that's where kind of like some of the excitement came from. Is hey, we get the chance to take advantage of this in our backyard because man, it's year 3, but God willing, it's like, man, we can. What does year 15 look like?
Absolutely.
Well, they say again, when you do the average business especially independent businesses or entrepreneurs, they last 3 to 5 years.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You're already almost there, right? So getting to that point, there's always those challenges. But being able to not only get this opportunity, but then to be someone of color in this place.
Absolutely.
Right. Was there any challenges? Was there any frowns? Any things that were like people trying to block you from getting this thing?
Well, I will say that the challenges is like, man, kind of looking at what other people did. A lot of other states have like social equity programs.
Yeah.
And that in a sense that's like, hey, either you or somebody in your family has been like impacted by cannabis, and I was hoping that we did that here, and that wasn't the case. So that wasn't an option. It's almost kind of like, hey man, like help me help myself.
Right.
And if that wasn't an option, this was the only option. So that's the way I went. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense. It makes tons of sense. And again, shout out to you for even taking that challenge and to go on this venture. Not very many people have the opportunity or even the guts to say, I'm gonna bet on me here.
Absolutely.
Right. And speaking from the experience of having to go look for investors and doing it, that's hard work.
That
is hard work. And I think if you are of the faint of heart, that's not this ain't for you.
It's not for you. And it's just like, hey, you're selling a dream. Like like reactively. Like things are changing, and you got to try to communicate what's going on with the people who are going to be investing their money in you.
Yeah,
you
your
know,
stockholders
so
for sure. And I just know again, and we're making it super kind of light. But our state is literally making it hard every step of the way. Every joint, there's been like a twist or a turn. Not quite that. We said that, but now we actually really mean this. So as you're going through the process, and again, getting your store established, and then again, we voted in 2020 for both medical and recreational, and then it turned around, went to a Supreme Court overturnment that they canceled the recreational side. Did that impact your business or your business plan? And how did you segue?
Yeah,
in that
it
situation?
really impacted the business plan, because I think most owner operators get into like the medical field in a roundabout way because they want to be, you know, first up to the table to help the public, the recreational space, you know. And with that, you know, just like, hey, don't want to get into too many things, but you know, you can either anywhere 10 to 15 times what you're already doing.
Yeah.
If it was rec, because you know, at that point they're removing the restrictions of you having to have your medical card, whether you're a state patient or a non-state patient. Like you have to have that to shop. But obviously rec, anybody with the ID and 21 and up can come through and kind of go from there. So it affected it that way. But you know, we've had 3 votes since then, 2 votes since then. And with that being said, it's like, man, we can't get over the hump again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The turnout is crazy. I feel like the yellow tape is kind of crazy. And then like, you know, just like I don't know what they call them, the amendments, I would say, or whatever. Like they always have like some like little sidebar caveat written in there that's like, I feel like it gives you like the premise is we're gonna give you what you're asking for, but underlining in the fine print, it says something completely different. So I just feel like, you know, you guys in that space, you guys been literally on a roller coaster trying to, you know, plan your future and your vision.
There's a lot of defense, man. You know, most people don't know, like each state and their representatives, you know, House and Senate, they meet for 8 weeks at the beginning of every year. And in those 8 weeks, it's a lot of defense that's being played. And, you know, it's not like we're not helping this program. You know, they're literally trying to repeal the program every step of the way. And, you know, just like, hey, in those 8 weeks, you're kind of playing defense and, you know, just hoping it doesn't go really wrong.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I think that sometimes people have the wrong, especially in the beginning, right? Like when this thing first started, it started to really gaining traction as an idea, right? I think sometimes in the culture we believe, oh man, if I've been in this game for whatever, I know how to flip this and do that. It's way different on this level. This isn't like you go open up shop on the corner.
You ain't doing a trap house. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's that mind. They got the trap mentality, right? Right. And maybe some similarities, but this is way different. What about the rest of the community of dispensaries? Like I know there's a few that have popped up, and are you guys more of coalition style, thinking about how we can do this together, or is it dog eat dog and you trying to knock
and really it's kind of feels like dog eat dog, but at the end of the day, man, it's cannabis. This plant is really supposed to be a kind of a healing plant. And you know, kind of dealing with other business owners, some of them have been absolutely fantastic. Others have been a little bit more, you know, like, hey, they want to be that, they want to be the dog that's eating the other dog, if you will. And it's just, they want us to play by their rules, you know. And I think that we have gotten the reception that we have gotten just because, like, hey, man, we're open to a policy. If you have the license, I'm willing to try to do some business with you to offer to the patients, because there's only 5 on the side of the state within our MSA. I guess I'm sorry, the city. There's 5 within the city, and you know, just I'm a numbers guy. I look at the numbers. You know, how many people are like how much website, I guess, traffic our website is driving, where that traffic is coming from, and when you have a certain amount of people looking, you know, you got to give them a reason to kind of press go. And so my open mind, I guess our open mind policy is like, hey man, if it's available, we want to have it available for the patients to purchase. And I think there's some operators that don't necessarily want to
help the patients.
No, they want to be the only establishment that's working with you to gain leverage on other companies.
Oh, I got you.
They don't want to see a kind of a fair market, if you will.
They want to be kind of like the monopoly.
And like I said, there's only a couple. Majority of them are great to work with. There's only a couple that try to like hone down and like, hey, work with us and only us.
So is it like a specific product? Like, cause like, so again, like obviously, again, we're talking about cannabis. So I know, it can be any different forms of plant, the like, I don't know, the cards, the edibles, the cards, I should say, the edible, things like that. So is it like they want to supply just a certain product and you are the only person exclusively that has that product from them? Or is it like,
no, it's more so that they want to kind of just lock down stores and become exclusive providers to that store.
Okay,
and it's not just our location. It's probably they probably have multiple locations throughout the state. But when you're limited to the province of Falls, and this is where the majority of the people are, I would say 60% of the population of the cardholders are on this side of the state.
Yeah,
so they try to get contracts
in a way, but you just gotta I just have to accept it. In a sense,
yeah.
Got you.
I'll take an invoice or an estimate before I take a contract. Is kind of how
for sure
we go about it.
For sure. Now, are there strand limitations? Are there level limitations to what you can grow and what you can dispense? Like
no, there's no strand limitations or limitations on what you can, like, when it comes to plant count or what you're growing. When it comes to just like, again, the highest strands tend to be the one to sell the most. But just overall, it's just like it's kind of open a little bit. They're asking some questions now. It's like, hey, are we overproducing or are we underproducing or where are we at with that? So it's just.
And like I said, those questions are coming from your investors.
No, not so much. Those questions are coming from the cannabis committee. It's just like they want to know what's going on within, the what's going on within the state. It's like, damn, how much cannabis is produced, and are we overproducing it based on the number of people that we have?
Yeah,
right.
So there's 5 here. What does statewide look like?
Statewide, I don't have the exact number, but I would imagine they're probably 30 to 40 throughout the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 here, still isn't a lot.
Yeah. No,
like, when you think about that, it still isn't a lot. And when you think about just
per capita.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's not a lot, but the best thing you can do is the medical market is get into like a limited situation.
Yep.
You don't want this like Oklahoma where it's just kind of wide open. Oklahoma's, I think it was $500 to $1,000. Anyway, you can have whatever license you want, and then they kind of like reined it in from there.
Yeah. Cast a wide net.
Yeah, but thank God they didn't do that here.
Yeah, no, for sure. So with it being strictly medical, and again, not to go too far in people's personal business, but is there certain I'm gonna say certain what is the word I'm looking for? Symptoms, not symptoms.
Or like kind of
pre-existing
conditions.
Yeah.
What normal pre-existing conditions you see typically gets you the medical card or that you see the most that are coming to get treatment?
So like our state is calling them the debilitating conditions, and a lot of people get through with just pain.
Okay.
But on top of that, there's a list about, pain, AIDS, cancer. There's IBS, if you will, just there's a number of things that, that you can kind of get this push through. And the list is actually with the state. It's on our website.
Gotcha.
But they actually did. That was like one of the biggest wins. They did kind of like revisit the list early on. And they added a handful of things, which is very beneficial.
Okay, awesome. And I know, like, what I'm saying, being you being in the industry, you kind of got an inside track. So just appreciate you letting our community know. The next kind of question I want to go into is, like, with that being said, though, and it's obviously tailored to our medical or any medical patient as far as having that. Are you seeing like people coming to you and like asking for like seeds to grow it themselves? Like, does that change like the market for you guys? Like, I want to grow it compared to just coming to buy it when I need it, or
Well, we don't sell really seeds at all. We don't really sell clones, but within our state law, I think one individual can have up to like 4 plants, and if you're a caregiver, I think you can have 5 people under you, so that kind of pushes about 20 plants.
Okay.
Well, if you only have about 20 plants, that you can probably get by, but it's still not going to be the amount of medicine you need to support the 5 people, or 6 people that you're kind of growing for. So, but no, most people come to us, just if it's their first time, they kind of want to know what am I getting into, and how does this differ from what the doctor's prescribing me when I go pick it up at the pharmacy. And we kind of just go through the different options between, you know, flower, you know, edibles. You have tinctures that you can get a hold of, you know, and you also have like one of the biggest things that's selling now is kind of vape carts, you know, just
that's the big
so people are getting away from, you know, just
the actual plant itself.
The actual plant itself, you know, and they're jumping over to, you know, concentrates and vape carts, really just anything convenient. Vape carts and kind of pre-rolls is kind of what we're seeing kind of.
Have you heard anything? Because, like, you know, obviously, you know, vaping and all that stuff for, you know, is a new thing you said for convenience wise and whatnot. Is there anything? I mean, obviously besides the obvious, but like, is there anything that's more beneficial if you do a cart over the plant itself, or is all this kind of the same?
When it comes to just like overall, just like, let's say just like flower, you know, like if you're a flower user, I'm going to tell you just as a patient, you know, find what works for you when it comes to you and your nose, you know, because it doesn't always go off like THC percentages, although that's what, you know, probably 80% of people shop off of. I do it as well. My bud tended to do it. But you know, like the true effects are really in the terpenes, and you can kind of pull up the terpene profile and kind of figure out, hey man, am I in here for inflammation? Am I in here for pain? Like, what am I in here for? And you can kind of backtrack it to, you know, like once you put in your nose into some flower, that has like kind of a lemon smell.
Yeah.
And that may match up with the terpene limonene, and that has its own, like I said, set of
health properties and what benefits.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, I mean, with us all being, you know, probably relatively in close age outside of this old ass man over there, we all went through DARE at some point, right? You know what I'm saying? Let's
open up the briefcase. Like, first of all, let me interject. Y'all showed me more drugs than I ever seen
than I ever knew
life.
Before I ever knew what it was.
I remember I'm 80s baby, so I remember seeing DARE, and it felt like the next week crack was you know what I mean? It was like, wait a minute, y'all just showed me this, and now it's everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, so the crack invasion started with DARE. I'm just saying, all my conspiracy.
Before he hijacked it and took us to crack, I'm not condoning any of his message, but no, my point about DARE was, like, you know, obviously, like I said, like we was talking about DARE being our first experience of eye-opening experience, like in school, talking about this, that, and the third when it comes to the marijuana and drugs. So, so now we have to relearn that, reteach people, re-educate us on, like, marijuana actually is a medical plant. It does have medicinal purposes.
Right.
And, like, I feel like, you know what I'm saying, that whole, you know, integration of, like, trying to indoctrinate us, turning us against the plant, which is kind of like, you know, it defeated the purpose of what they were, what was actually made for. You know what I'm saying?
Right, or no, for sure.
And I just feel like, you know, so now you're in this space and you are educating people on the benefits of it. How does that feel? You have people coming in and saying, like, well, you know, I'm a medical patient now, but they're still kind of against it. They don't really know quite for it. Like, tell me about the educational side with it, and how does that feel?
Well, first of all, I want to say, and this is my opinion, they use DARE to get it in our houses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
I want to point that out.
I'm going to co-sign that, sir.
They use the DARE program. They put it in front of kids at school, and those kids talked.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those kids talk, you know, they probably were worried about something at home or whatever the case may be, but DARE wasn't really what we thought it was supposed to be. You know, it scared the shit out of us as kids, but, you know, but back to what you're saying, you do have to unlearn things.
Yeah.
And it takes a really open mind to want to unlearn some shit, because we still can't get our grandparents to be like on the side that, like, hey man, they just, what is it? The HHS just put out, what is it? 46,000 pages of why cannabis is beneficial for the human body.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you
fuck you, government.
I guarantee you can't get your grandmother to, you know, get on page 2 and be like, hey, well, I want to check this out.
Yeah.
You know, and what they use televisions and radio for back in the, you know, was it late 80s, early 90s, is, you know, to scare the shit out of us, figure out a way in our home. And when it comes to just cannabis, you know, it was like kind of a gateway drug to all the other.
That's what they
shit.
told everybody, right? That was the point. But speaking from somebody like I lost my grandmother to cancer, right, to breast cancer, and all these drugs that they was trying to fill her full of, right? Where she got the most
Benefit.
Benefit and I mean, she was 95 when she got breast cancer. You know what I'm saying? So she can't go through chemo and all that stuff, right? Was the cream. That was her most comfort she got. So to hear all the nonsense that came prior. And I'm looking at it like, what would you rather have? Would you want my grandmother, who at this age, she's going through the worst thing ever? You want to pop her with pills? You know, but when we got to, Puerto Rico, that's what happened. So she's getting the cream and now she's getting some kind of relief from this pain. That's why when I hear the nonsense, and this is from a former drug and alcohol counselor. Like I was a drug and alcohol counselor for 8 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
The more you know.
The more you know. Listen, I mean, I go out. But when you start seeing, I seen the direct results of it, where the problem occurred with marijuana is that people weren't just doing marijuana.
Absolutely.
It was lacing, and once you start introducing foreign substances
into it,
now we can talk about gateway stuff. Now once you taint it, yes,
that's
you start
it's
talking
different.
about a gateway thing, right?
Where?
And because I remember, back when, again, in the 80s, it was just, some herb, or they was calling it whatever they was calling it, right? And then they start
lacing it. Right.
Once you start, chemically, when you change anything chemically, it's going to have a different effect on you.
For sure.
And I think people overlook that. Right. And so when I saw that, even because I was treating kids and adults, and they say, oh yeah, I was started out with this, but I would ask deeper questions. Okay, so was it just plain? Well, I don't know. That's my point. If you don't know what you're putting in your body, I don't know how you can say this is a gateway if you don't know what you get.
I was gonna say, and taking it one step further, we have heard a lot of stories in hip hop where hip hop artists unfortunately get hooked on something because someone passes them something that's laced with something else. They thinking it's just, and I'm gonna say the most famous one is DMX. You know what I'm saying? He was smoking. Somebody had something laced in his, and then all of a sudden he's been hooked on. Absolutely. So my point with that is make sure you go to East River Dispensary. East River Farms. You know what I'm saying, and get your stuff pure potent from the direct source, you know what I'm saying? Because you can't trust your anybody off the street corner that has a raincoat. Right. You know what I mean?
I will say this just about the kind of lace thing, and I know like it's a little controversial, but if you pay attention to enough to what's going on with fentanyl, you have, I don't know, it's the cartel, I don't know who's who, but you do have weed laced fentanyl that people are smoking that they're not realizing they're smoking. And the reason that they're doing it, just in my opinion, is because the money's too slow right now. If the money is too slow, they got to find out a way to really kind of make some junkies and kind of turn themselves up a little bit.
So talk about that. So now, and I don't know how prevalent it is here, but I can imagine the prevalence of that challenge in bigger cities, but you could probably speak more to it, where, the dispensaries may be looked at as competition for a street dude. And like, yo, y'all ruining
the hustle.
my hustle.
Right.
And like you said, now they got to take it to next levels. Have you heard of, or are you experiencing any like pushback from the street, I would say?
Not so much, but I will say this, just when it comes to, I guess, what I'm talking about, more so just like the cannabis lace fentanyl, when you just getting it from off the street, it's slowly creeping in these communities. And if you kind of pay attention to what's going on just here, I think our local news, Kellerland, just did an article on it. I think Rapid City Journal had an article on 2 cases out west. I don't think we lost anybody in South Dakota behind it, but it's like the idea that it is in your backyard.
Sure.
But just as far as, when it comes to us hearing about anybody from the streets or any of these smoke shops, man, a lot of times you don't really hear the smoke to your face or whatever the case may be, and that's not something I'm really worried about. I know that today, or when we started this thing, it's like, hey man, you're probably going to ruffle, it's new. You're going to ruffle some feathers, and if you were in the legacy market prior to that, you better figure out how to get in the, if you at legacy traditional market prior to that, to what's going on now, you better figure out how to transition. And if you can't, you need to figure out another hustle.
Exactly. And I no knock on any street pharmacists out there, but you know what I'm saying? If you've been selling sacks your whole life, it's time to upgrade. Maybe invest in your in a community that's going to actually be a benefit to you and not just be a deterrent to everything else. You know what I'm saying?
And I wouldn't even say we're the competition for the overall streets. You know, it's just like what's going on just with the hemp. You know, it's like, hey, you can go to any Roll and Smoke, you can go to Common Sense, you can go to any of the head shops. You know, where just back in the day you were just buying some incense, a drug rug, a hoodie, if you will, and let's just call it your accessories. You know, nowadays, you know, you don't need a card to go into these spots.
These headspaces.
And so the only competition is probably with somebody coming from the streets is probably somebody with the head shop.
You know. Sure. I mean, you kind of touched on that. You said like obviously you can get like Delta 8, you can get CBD,
right?
And all these I guess they're byproducts of marijuana. Can you educate us a little bit on the difference between, like, again, obviously a THC product and then CBD and Delta 8 and all that stuff?
It's all cannabis. You know, just in my opinion, I think the hemp companies they work with different, you know, testing companies, and they figure out COAs. But at the end of the day, it's all hemp, and at the end of the day, hemp is cannabis. And you know, it may not be as pretty coming out of those stores, you know, because they probably pull it early to have it test a certain way versus you know, there's some science behind it, and I don't know all the science behind it, but you know, at the end of the day, it's a market. It's a market that's a lot bigger than what we're doing on the medical thing. You know, some of these stores are, you know, doing, like I said, 6 figures plus a month in multiple locations. You know, some of your gas stations are doing 6 figures off hemp.
But that's also the true, like, because it's less regulated. Like, I mean, so like hemp or Delta 8, all that stuff, like I can just sell that without, you have to be 18 or 21, right?
Exactly. So
but that only restricts you, basically.
Right. It's less regulated, and most of the time you can go find, you know, any other suppliers just by jumping online to their websites, because, you know, they're creating real businesses and brands on these things. You know, Minnesota probably, like, just when it comes to drinks, and you know, like
oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. The infused drinks and all that stuff.
So it's like Minnesota, I think Minnesota is going to be little California in a minute. You know, like they just opened their kind of lottery, if you will. You know, I think we have about 30 days to get something in if you want something going on in Minnesota. But you know, just from a low level hemp grade, you know, they have real breweries and manufacturers,
distilleries, and
creating brands, and you know, it's not going to be Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but you're going to have brands that's, you know, coming out.
Could be soon.
Could be soon. Like, you never know what something's like. You never know what it turns into, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the history of Coca-Cola.
It's not a history. It's still right now to this day. To this day. You know what I mean?
So if you could, especially for viewership, common myths. You want to shoot some myths in the face and say that, you know, people trying to get into the dispensary business, or who can get into and buy from. Like, what are some myths you have heard that you're like, no, not true, stop listening to that?
They can't afford it.
Okay.
You know, the biggest thing is they can't afford it. Like I said, if you're able to jump online, you know, and try to figure out just how to get a card. They have low income options where I think you can pay as cheap as $25 for the year, opposed to $75. So that's $50 off. You know, but most importantly, when it comes to just the overall, like, products, you know, that's an element. They can't afford the products once they do get the card.
Yeah.
You know, we have just in our store now, we have $50 ounces, $100 ounces, you know, what is it? $5 pre-rolls, and we sales all day long. So
so it's literally really inexpensive to make sure you treat whatever your pre-existing condition is, you know what I'm saying? And again, there really isn't an excuse either, though, too, because I feel like science and all the reports you can look at, compared, like you said, your grandmother, compared to the treatments that you can get through an actual doctor with pills and all this other stuff, compared to the benefits you can get from going the organic route. Again, it's a night and day difference. And again, I don't know what everyone's pre-existing condition is, and there might be some obviously more severe than others, but from what my own personal research, I feel like just the benefits alone, and like I said, it's not a cure by any means, right? It is a treatment, you know what I'm saying? But you're seeing longer lasting effects and less detrimental to people's health compared to taking all these pills and these opioids and all these other things, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, you said the HHS
report. HHS put out a report, you know, I think it was like almost 50,000 pages.
all the benefits,
just the benefits and the research on why this thing could 46,000 pages on why this should be moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Yeah.
But, like, I would say just another method is along with the lines that they can afford it. It'll just be like like we've been praying for access to not be meeting a nigga in the parking lot or whatever the case may be, like just behind or whatever, just like, hey,
allegedly,
like,
yeah.
Let's be real, man. There's a legacy market before there was
there's
a market.
always going
for
to be.
sure.
At the end of the day, it's always going to be a legacy market, and there's nothing you can do to change that. It's like, hey,
I like how that sounds.
Yeah,
it sounds so much more softer than what
right,
it is.
right.
Legacy market.
Right, legacy tradition.
For sure. So all you legacy marketers out there, it's time to turn over a new hustle. Yeah,
Right,
for sure.
That's exactly what it is, man. It's just like, hey, and to that crowd, it's like, man, you're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they, like, people try to push it all the kind of ways.
And that's
at the end of the day, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's one thing I always said about our community, though, is like we have entrepreneurs out there that just don't realize they are.
Right.
And educating them, it's like if you can hustle and successfully, you can run a business. You are running a business. You know what I'm saying? Supply and demand. All the things that you need to do. You just need to apply yourself in a more of a manner that's going to get you legitimized. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's a salute. So I mean, matter of fact, make sure you shout out your store, your websites, all the stuff they can go find you at.
Well, just when it comes to the store, it's eastriverfarms.com. From there, you can kind of put in online orders, contact us. There's a little bit of information on there if you do want a card. When it comes to socials, East River Farms on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X now, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And
we're not hard to find.
Shout out yourself as well, too, just in case people have any personal questions they want to shoot to you directly or anything like that.
Just for myself, like I said, I get all the stuff from the website. So it most of the time, if you're gonna contact like something on the website or put in an order, I kind of see it all. So
got you. So it goes to him no matter what. So don't worry. You know what I'm saying? Plus, like I said, I feel like it's always good to have someone from our community educating people in our community.
And they don't even know how like really rare this is, man. We really
exactly. We know. That's why.
Like and African Americans make up 1 or 2% of this entire industry.
It's crazy,
and that's throughout the United States.
Yeah,
and so I'm very blessed to kind of be in the position.
You walk in history. Say it, man, with your chest.
And it's Black History Month. Let's go.
I thought that was an executive. Hey, but here's what I was saying. I know dispensaries is winning. You know why? Because I've been here for a long time, right? And this is how I know that I'm winning.
Yeah.
I have been behind way more cars right now.
Yeah.
In which I'm like, this light better change or I'm not gonna make it home.
You got to roll with
exhaust system. Got pushing out the front. I'm like, woo,
right.
Like, so y'all winning. Salute to you. Salute to your journey. Blessings and prayers that this goes as smooth and as far as you possibly can imagine it.
I appreciate it.
Because we need to see this seen all the way through. And as you know, the more successful you're gonna get, the more people going to talk. The more people going to try to tear it down, right? Stay the course, man. I'll speak for the people. I'm proud of you.
I appreciate
that. And I just want to see you win.
I want
to see y'all win.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But again, like I said, everything Manny just said there, man. We super pleased to have you on our show. And anytime you need anything from us, let us know, man.
Sure.
We
I
love
appreciate it for sure.
Love to promote your dispensary and all that goodness. But yeah, we for the records, my man. I'm your boy K3, man. Salute.